Welcome to the Islamic Library Association. We are dedicated to showcasing Muslims' rich contributions to literature and society while advocating for accurate representation and equity in libraries. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalisah Harris. I am a librarian and the founder of the Islamic Library Association, where we advocate for equity in libraries and public spaces, ensuring Muslims are represented accurately, respectfully, and with the depth they deserve. In this interview series, we are speaking with library professionals and allies who recognize the importance of Muslim representation in libraries and work to strengthen it. Together, we explore how inclusion, accountability, and intentional practice shape more equitable library spaces for everyone. Today, we're joined by Miss April Friend, a Children's Services Coordinator. April designs weekly story times, creative craft programs, and literacy focused events for children ages birth to 11. She's passionate about building inclusive collections and displays that reflect her community's diversity so every child feels seen and represented. One of her signature programs, Around the World, gives young readers a taste of global cultures through authentic food, hands on art, and storytelling. Thank you so much for joining us today, April. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
You are a children's librarian and have been for several years now. When did you first realize that you needed to make an intentional effort to ensure Muslim children and families were included in your selections and programming?
So, when I first started working here, I had no idea that there was such a large Muslim community in York. And I realized that I did not know much about that at all. And such a large number of our patrons are Muslim. It became really clear to me when I was planning a program, one of my first programs that I ever did, and the teen services librarian here, she and I were talking about like what I was going to include. It was kind of like a tea party program, and I had like little treats and snacks and stuff. And she was like, "Oh, well, just make sure, that you add on to your thing about dietary restrictions and allergies, because I know a lot of people don't eat gelatin for religious reasons. And I see that you have lots of gummy snacks on your planning paper here." I was like, huh, you're right.
Okay, so you quite early on learned that there were some dietary restrictions, and in that moment or realization that there were such a large Muslim population in your county or in your area and that there were dietary restrictions, is that a moment that helped you realize that maybe there are other things that may be needed that you should know about if you're going to be hosting programs?
Yeah, I didn't want to, whether on accident or not, make anybody feel like my program wasn't for them just because of something that was in it. So I wanted to make sure that, like, if, there was like, I am having this, but then there is also this as an alternative. Like if you don't eat this or can't have that or whatever, I wanted everybody to feel like every program was for them if they wanted to come.
Nice. So within your library system, are there any organizational requirements or expectations around ensuring Muslim representation in your displays or programs?
I don't I don't think we have any like actual requirements. I think it's more of just like at our discretion. Um there's not like written you have to have these things. anywhere that I'm aware of.
So you've taken it upon yourself to ensure that everyone in your community feels included in whatever you're doing.
Yes.
Can you share some examples of um, maybe even like your all around the world program? Anything where you know that you have intentionally included Muslim voices within your process.
So, like I said, I like to do a lot of displays, and I have like intentionally done, like holiday displays. Ramadan is one that we do a lot, a display for every year, and that gets a lot of checkouts, and we get a lot of comments also about it, like from the community, or being like, "Wow, I didn't know you guys had all these cookbooks for Ramadan," and we're like, "Yeah, we have all kinds of stuff."
Mhm.
Um, so it's nice for me to see patrons see us seeing them,
Nice.
I guess.
So when you're introducing characters or traditions that may be unfamiliar to some families, because you were saying from the beginning that you didn't even realize that there were that many Muslims in your community, how did you make it accessible and welcoming for everyone, opposed to just not only the Muslims?
Right. So if I'm doing something where we're exploring other cultures or traditions, um, like program my program that I do where we go around the world, that one, like, I make sure that I clearly explain, like, what we're gonna be doing, making, trying, why it's important, why we're doing this, why other people do this, just so that the patrons know what to expect. So it's not like a surprise or like, "Oh, I didn't know this program was gonna have that in it," like, just so that everybody is on the same page when we start.
Lovely. In what way, well, have you had an experience where you've had to handle questions? For example, let's say someone who was not Muslim was asking, "Well, why that? Why do they dress like that? Or why don't they eat that? Or just anything when there's questions from other patrons."
Yes, actually, my son is, it was at Lego Club one time, and we have one Muslim family that comes to a lot of programs, and they have several children that are different ages. Um, and my Lego Club program is pretty popular with pretty much everybody in the group in the community. So my son was here, and he is always like a kid that wants to ask questions, and he wants to know everything about everything, and he wants to have all of the information all the time.
Mhm,
So that family was at the program, and one of the children had on very fancy outfit, and they had like a hat on that was different than like anything Caleb had ever seen before. That's my son.
mhm.
His name's Caleb. And so he comes up to me and he goes, Mom, they look really fancy. Like, is there is that's like a part like were we supposed to be fancy? And I was like, no. I was like, they are dressed like that because of their religion. And if you have a question about it, I was like, you could start with something like, "Hey, I really like your hat. I've never seen one like that before. Is it special? Does it have special meaning?" I was like, "And you might, learn something, make a new friend." So he goes over there and does exactly that. He's like, "Hey, your hat is really cool and fancy. Are you wearing it for a reason?" And I was like, "Well, you almost had it, buddy. You almost had it." But yeah, so he and that child ended up making their build together, and they talked the entire time, like the whole hour that we did Lego Club. And so
Mhm,
then we're in the car going home, and he was telling me all about all the stuff he learned
mhm.
that this kid shared with him. And I was like, "Oh, see, like that was cool, right?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I could have Googled it." I was like, "Well, wasn't it better to not Google it?" So, I don't know, I guess all that to say, in general, I would, say to approach with, like, a place of curiosity and not judgment. Um, and you never know what you're gonna learn when you look at anything that way, really.
That's very true. I think it's wonderful when anyone really, but I think children are actually sometimes more capable of being vulnerable and being honestly comfortable enough to ask the questions. I think sometimes adults have more of a hard time, uh, including librarians. I think sometimes feel like they're supposed to automatically know everything, have all this research, but that's not always accurate. So, how you were saying, "Oh my god, but you almost had it," but it worked for him. It worked
He
for
did his
them.
best.
Yeah, he still came out from the program learning more than Legos, so that's really good,
Yeah.
and that's both ways, for the children to be able to interact and to learn about each other. It's not just like a one-sided thing, so I think that's great,
And that's
and
why, we also like just for that's just a really good example of like a lot of our programs, on our descriptions, we attach like what type of literacy this program promotes. And because I'm the children's librarian, pretty much every one of my programs promotes like social and emotional literacy,
yeah,
learning how to talk to and communicate and interact with other people. So that was just a perfect example of that specifically, also.
yeah, that's great. It just shows how libraries really shape communities, to be able to have the whole community come together. It's a children's program, but how the children get there? Adults have to bring them, so
Hmm.
it really works, across both ways, for people to get to know each other and to not fear what they don't know or to, like you said, Google's not going to always give accurate information. And it definitely sometimes doesn't make it personable, opposed to if you know someone. So
Right.
I think that's a great example of how people in general can get to know people and that it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And Muslims are part of the community and should feel included both ways, you know? So, do you feel, as a children's librarian, you were saying how you talk about there's different types of what types of literature, and you're talking about, you know, socialization, emotions, behaviors, things like that. Do you feel that there's enough books that talk about those things that still represent Muslims broadly, opposed to just for the sake of a holiday? Or do you feel the selection is more limited still?
So, as far as like our library goes, I would say that we have enough to make like small displays or like combined all ages displays. Uh, but I whenever I'm making a display specifically, I like to have enough of a pool of books to choose from so that as people take books off of it, I have books to go back on. And I don't feel like we have that exactly. So we have enough to make like a small display, but think that the selection is still pretty limited in what we have here.
So, would you say that the challenge is not making a display, but more so being able to have a more full display or enough books to where it can stay replenished?
Right, and enough books that are not just the same type of book, like, I'm not gonna make a display that has 7 books on it that's just like, "What is Ramadan?" Like, I mean, I want there to be some diversity, I want there to be storybooks, I want there to be nonfiction, I want there to be books about, Islam in general, um, things like that, like, I want there to be slice of life books.
Yeah.
I I don't want just the facts, like, I want, the other stuff too, I want the meat.
Genres. So you're saying the fiction, the graphic novels, the romance, all of these types of different genres, not only the nonfiction, because Ramadan is like it is a holiday or a festive season for Muslims,
Mhm.
but Muslims have much more vibrant lives than only Ramadan.
Right, and
Some
that
books should
and
reflect that.
yeah, and just, it's not just holidays, like, I don't know, every day is important, not just these days, like,
Yes.
you could
And
go pull any other book off the shelf, and, there's hundreds of books that just are about, like, I found a flower in the park, like, there's all kinds of books just about regular days, and there needs to be representation in those books as well, not just in the books about specifically, like, religious traditions and holidays.
I agree with you 100%. but that comes with collections because as a children's librarian, you can only make displays based upon the books that are acquired within the collections.
Mhm.
So it's not your fault per se, but you are the one who recognizes and experiences the effects of not having enough diversity within the literature that does represent Muslims.
Mhm.
So if you could request one thing from publishers or authors or even the collection development department, um, to better support Muslim representation, what would you tell them?
Um, I personally, based on what we have here,
Mhm.
I would like to see more, like I said, like slice of life books. And honestly, I would like to see books that are more simple and geared towards like younger audiences. Because one thing that I find is when I'm trying to do like specific themes or incorporate, you know, Muslim voices, for example, into like a story time or whatever, um, picking books to read aloud is harder than a lot of people think it is because you have to look at like, is it too wordy? Is it too long? Is it too complex for this age group to understand? Like, if it's about kids in fourth grade, they don't care. They're three. So they don't know what that is. Um, and like, there's a couple of stories that come to mind just off the top of my head, like Sky Blue Bench and The Kindest Red. Like, those are beautiful stories, but they don't work well as like read alouds for story time because The
Mm,
Sky Blue Bench is really long. And The Kindest Red is about like something happening at like an upper elementary school age.
yes.
Um, like, setting.
Mhm.
So, it's a little wordy and not really relevant to younger audiences, like preschool
Yes.
and early elementary age kids. So, I guess that's what I would like to see more of personally.
Right.
I was just gonna say we have a lot. I am seeing more and more when my new books come in of like chapter books in middle grade and graphic novels where the main characters are Muslim.
Okay.
Um, and I have not read every single one of them. So I don't know how far that pertains into the story
Mhm.
explicitly,
Mhm.
but I am seeing the representation there more in middle grade and graphic novels than I have in years past.
Yes. Yes, I do agree that there are more books, and we just gotta get them into the libraries and make sure that they're accurate, because there are some books, many books actually, the older the books get, the more inaccurate the information is. So, but that's a whole different topic. But the idea of getting more younger books that are good for read alouds, I think that's a really great observation. So, with all that you do and all that you've been doing, do you feel that there's a place for the Islamic Library Association under the American Library Association?
Of course. Um, I mean, yeah, like, the Islamic voices and Muslim voices are just as important as any other voices in literature, and it is like you know, a group that needs more representation and help getting the representation, so, yeah, I definitely think that there's a place for Islamic Library Association under the umbrella of the American Library Association.
Lovely. And as you're around all these different groups of people, because it's not only like Muslim and non-Muslim, there's Muslims, there's other groups of people all within your community. How do you
Mhm.
hope children and family in general, but also the Muslim children and families, how do you hope that they feel when they walk into one of your programs?
I want them to feel like they belong here, like there's a space for them here, not like, "Oh, we could be in this program, but we can't fully participate because of XYZ." I want them to know that there's place for them at the table here. Not that they were just added on at the end. Like, I want everybody, that comes into my department especially to feel like they belong and that they see themselves, represented on our shelves and that they, feel welcomed by me as the children's librarian here. So I want them
Nice.
to know that they're safe here.
Well, yes, libraries are safe places. And I know librarians oftentimes we talk about inclusion, and inclusion is great, it's important, but sometimes we have to acknowledge who's being excluded from the inclusion efforts, and it's not always necessarily intentional. But like you were saying, okay, you had all the gummies. That wasn't an intentional thing, you know?
That was my bad. I fixed it.
So you did that's great, but that's part of learning. Learning who you're serving and making adjustments so that people can feel included. And like you said, not just added on at the end or, yeah, you can tag along, but this really isn't for you. And of course, every single person is not interested in every single program. That's not what I'm saying.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be based upon being against everything, you know? It should be things options for Muslims to participate in whatever's going on at their local library.
Mhm.
As a librarian, what advice would you give to other librarians who want to improve Muslim representation in their own spaces? Like you're in children's, what about with the young adult librarian or the adult services librarian or anyone else?
Um, I would say, the number one thing is to like get to know your community, like talk to your patrons when they come in. I mean, you can learn a lot about patrons just by just chatting normally with them,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's, your regular patrons that come in all the time. Um, I mean, like I have a pretty good rapport with most of the families that come in here just because I won't stop talking when they come in. Um, and but, like, if you're noticing, like, in your own library and it's like, "Hey, there's not enough of this. I want to make a display," you can find members of your community that identify with whatever display you're trying to make and ask them, "Hey, I have these things. Do you have any suggestions or, what would you like to see, uh, on our shelves? What are you interested in?" And obviously also the internet is a great place to start. Like there's lots of different librarians and literary websites that have information about what works in their libraries and like what books are even out there. Like I don't know, sometimes like the thing that sparks a search for me is just like a quick, hey, what are some read alouds that include XYZ? And then I will
Mhm.
go on like a rabbit hole deep dive into what else is out there that is pertains to that thing,
Yeah.
whether it be Muslim voices or you know d- robots or anything else. Like it could be
Mhm.
anything, but specifically in this case, um, the information and resources are out there if
Mm.
you look for them.
Important. They have to look for them. I know that there are a lot of challenges when it comes to collections, because the collections department can only select from the resources that they're given. And a lot of the Muslim stories are not selected from those top five. Well, the manuscripts are not necessarily selected to even become a book published from one of the top five publishers and things like that. So there are many hurdles in ensuring that Muslim representation are equitably included to be on the shelves, but I do think that it starts with trying with what we do have access to and for patrons and librarians to request specific books to at least let it be known, like, we need these things. So even if they're not from your specific distributor, you need to know so that we can, so they could be known that people are looking for them and needing them, and that they
Hmm.
would be used accordingly and, have benefit for the community. So I think what you're doing is great, definitely within your power, quote unquote, as a librarian, ensuring that everyone is feeling welcomed and you're getting what you need and making whatever adjustments that you need. So thank you so so much. I definitely appreciate that. I'm sure all of your patrons do, whether they say it or not. I'm gonna go ahead and say it for them. So
Well, thanks.
you're welcome. Well, before we finish up today, Do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Um, I don't I don't know. I think I love what you're doing, and I think it's a worthy endeavor, and I am really excited to see, where this journey takes you. And I am really
Oh,
excited to be part of it, and I'm glad that I can help you.
oh, thank you so much, April. I appreciate it. I know we worked together briefly, but it's always great to see you when I stop by, and whether I'm there or not, I do see that you all are trying within, the parameters that are allowed at this time, to
Mhm.
do what you can do. So I definitely appreciate it. If you have any questions, you already know, feel free to call me, text me, or whatever, and I'll help however I can.
All right.
Yes, but thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.
All right. You're welcome.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Join the Islamic Library Association, and together we can shape a more inclusive future for literature.